Hey everybody, we're back at Red Rocks Racing Sportsbook. He's Jason, I'm Chuck for the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends. And before we jump in, Jay, first I want to mention that our Durango property opened last night. Just a phenomenal property, a game changer, and want to congratulate Bert Sorrencione and his team in the Racing Sportsbook and all the team members from Durango. We had an opportunity to go last week one night for dinner, and it is just a phenomenal, beautiful, impressive, game-changing property.
I spent all day there yesterday.
You
It was
did.
absolutely fantastic.
And you'll be there again tonight.
Property looks absolutely fantastic. It's just so warm, inviting. It's exciting. You walk in the property, you just absolutely feel the excitement. You feel the luxury as you walk through the property. And from a racing sportsbook standpoint, the video wall, the video around the bar, the video in the George, the plush seating, it just has everything that you want from that, you just called it that game-changing experience. That's what Durango Sportsbook's going to offer you. So when you get a chance, make that stop by Durango and enjoy a game, enjoy a Knights game, enjoy a Raiders game.
I mean, you really feel like when you're in the book there, I mean, every seat's on the 50-yard line. You're behind home plate for a baseball game. You're center court for a basketball game. 50-yard line, behind the glass. It really is a cool experience, kind of the curvature of the way the video wall goes. And we've spent some time in there. And then the outdoor component at the George, too. Super cool. If you're a sports fan, there really is no better place for viewing and betting than in that sports book.
Yeah, and one of the things we talked about, obviously when you have an incredible venue like they have there, and the video wall is there, the bar wall is there. One of the things that I'm so impressed with is the audio, the sound that's coming out of the screens and overhead. You can watch and listen to the game, and you feel like you're really at the stadium. And again, as beautiful as all of our properties are and all the outlets are, the one thing that's making Durango great is the team members. They're invested. They're ready to welcome our guests. And when you get a beautiful property like that and the ability to work in this brand new venue with all the bells and whistles, the team members are so excited, and they're really looking forward to our guests. You can see it on their faces.
Yeah. I mean, it's that
our
perpetual smile that they have as you walk around the property. It's every department. They're warm. They're engaging. It's a big smile. And I think that's what makes our property so special. So with that said, again, congratulations, Bert. Great job over there. Go check that sportsbook out, too. It is really a phenomenal experience. We're going to dive into college football first. You look at, did the committee get it right, I think is the first question with the 4 teams that are in it. Does Washington belong? We know Michigan, Alabama, Texas. There's some major question marks, though, about, Florida State getting left off or not.
And this is what a 4-team tournament does, is it has that controversy, and we've been in this controversy for the last several years, and we'll move on to next year to 12 teams. And you know what? There'll be controversy next year because we'll be talking about the teams that got the 11th spot, the 12th spot, and who was the 13 and the 14 that got let go. And it happens every year in March Madness when we've had 64 teams, and we've expanded to 68 teams. And when you're the 69th team and the 70th team, then you feel like you get left out.
The 69th or 70th is different than a team that's undefeated.
Absolutely.
I'm just
saying the controversy's there. From my standpoint, obviously a 13-0 Florida State team with the fact that Jordan Travis isn't playing.
Right.
It's just a shame that a team that's 13-0, the 60 other guys that are on that team don't get a chance to go play for a championship.
And their conference had a tougher overall conference schedule than the SEC did.
Yeah. I feel like they should have been the 4 seed. They didn't have a loss. Obviously, Texas and Alabama has the loss. They could be in there. Now, if we're talking about the best 4 teams in the country who we have remaining, from a Las Vegas standpoint, the best 4 teams in the country are still Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State. Those are the teams with the highest power rating. So they're a little bit different than what the committee has to offer. And I think the one thing that the committee really struggled with, and the best kind of argument that I've heard, was the fact that they couldn't leave the SEC out. The SEC has dominated college football, and with Alabama's beating Georgia, if they didn't get Alabama in there or they didn't get Georgia in there, how could you possibly leave the SEC out and put in Michigan, Washington, Texas, and Florida State and not have the SEC
isn't
present?
That what, we talked about it. We think worked against Florida State was the fact that Georgia didn't win.
Yeah,
if Georgia wins that game, I think it's a different 4 teams that we're talking about right now.
If Georgia beats Alabama, Georgia remains the 1, Michigan remains the 2, Washington is the 3, and I truly believe Florida State is the 4th team in the country, and we leave Texas and Alabama out of the mix with their losses, and the SEC has a representative in Georgia, so they don't feel the need to push Alabama to that spot.
Right, I totally agree. I think that really worked against FSU when that happened.
Now, that said, It's over.
It's over.
It's done with.
We can look at the two games
Let's
now.
enjoy the games and watch these two teams. Again, the Michigan-Alabama game, very, very close, closer to a pick'em point spread. The Texas-Washington game, we're sitting at that 4.5 down to 4.
Well, we've seen dog money in both games, though. You talk about the Michigan-Alabama game, open 2.5. It quickly was bet down to 1.5. So a lot of action on Alabama there. In the other game, Texas opened up 5. It's come down a full point down to 4. So a lot of dog play so far in those two games, but really competitive matchups when you look at the overall power rating for those four teams.
Those are great matchups, especially
Right.
the Texas game, which will be the evening game that day, with a high total of 65
they can go up
out
and down
there.
the field.
It looks like, the fact that Washington's got the ability to score, playing those Pac-12 type games that they did against Oregon, USC. We could see something similar here, as that Texas team has been putting up the points since they've gotten their quarterback back in Quinn Ewers. They've really been throwing the football, and we know Sarkisian is really, really creative in an offense, and now you give him kind of 3 weeks to prepare what they can come up for. But before we get to these championship games, we're going to have a slate of 20 bowl games before we get there that are going to be, it's probably one of the more unique situations of what college football bowl games are compared to what they used to be just a decade ago. With the fact that the transfer portal makes things really, really challenging to know who's going to be on the field, the number of coaching changes that we're going to see between now and when these games get played, it's really a unique situation to try and make numbers for these games.
It really used to be you would kind of wait to get that list of what players would declare for the NFL draft, and that would have some impact. But now that transfer portal, they're talking about Ohio State in the range of 11 to 15 kids that are going to transfer. I mean, big-name quarterbacks, if it was Ugalele or Dylan Gabriel, Riley Leonard. There's so many quarterbacks now that are leaving that it just really, you're going to see more, I think, line movement than you've ever seen before. We started to see it 2 years ago, but it's been crazy so far with even favorites flipping and numbers moving 3, 4, 5 points because of some of that.
I know we have a couple games that we want to kind of address real quick here, but I want to just give you an overall kind of bowl game, some tips and things to look for. One of the things that I always look for is teams that have 9 wins. Getting 10 wins in college football, in a college football season, is something that's kind of coveted by coaches. And obviously there's the perennial SEC top of the conference teams that get 10 wins all the time. But getting 10 wins, getting that double-digit wins for a lot of these programs is an absolutely enormous number, and it can be celebrated throughout their program. So go and look for those teams that have 9 wins. There's about a half a dozen of them that have 9 wins, UNLV included, to be able to get their 10th win. But 9 wins is a big, big selling sign for those teams that are looking for that 10th win. So something to look in your handicapping standpoint. And also go look at home sites. A lot of these teams, they're not necessarily playing at their home site, but they're playing pretty close to home, or they're playing in their home state. So don't just say, hey, they're playing in a bowl game, I like this team. Go look exactly where they're playing, because sometimes that can work for them or against them, depending on that crowd. In particular, we talk about UCLA playing Boise State in the LA Bowl. UCLA is actually a shorter trip to SoFi Stadium playing in the LA Bowl than they are their home stadium in the Rose Bowl. But that being said, that's one of the games that's up kind of close for us with UCLA, Boise State. Again, we talked about the transfer portal. Traylon Green, the quarterback for Boise State, is in the transfer portal. Dylan Moore, the quarterback for UCLA, is in the transfer portal. You've got
it really changes.
Latu, probably the best defensive player in the country for UCLA. Don't know if he's going to play in the game with him going to the draft. Boise State's interim coach that went 3-0 and led them to the Mountain West Championship. This will be his first bowl game as a head coach, so a lot of motivation for them there. There's not a lot of guys in the transfer portal, these teams, but it seems like some of the key guys for both these teams are in the transfer portal.
And they're not done. I mean, that's the key. We still don't know. Every day you're seeing kids that are declaring for the NFL draft or looking to the portal. So just really keep an eye on that. We're in an information era. That information's out there. Really pay attention to that before you make some of these bets on these bowl games, because you might see some dramatic movement. Let's touch on UNLV a little bit. They great season. They had a terrific season, but kind of limp into bowl season a little bit with those late losses against San Jose and against Boise. They open up an 11-point dog against Kansas. That number really has shot up 1.5, so early play on Kansas. They're not that far from home, though. They're playing in Arizona, so it's at least they're staying out west to play in this game, but really moving up to play play Kansas in this game.
Yeah, and Kansas is one of those teams that, again, coming from the Big 12, they've had big offensive output. They've played really good of late. Their quarterback, Jason Bean, back and healthy. But really, Kansas does it with their ground game. Devin Neal, Daniel Hinshaw, these are two monster running backs. Kansas has the 9th-ranked rushing offense in the country at over 211 yards a game. One of UNLV's kind of sour points in these last two games was that Boise State ran for 301 yards on them, and San Jose State ran for 233 yards on them. So that could be a little bit of why we're seeing that line move of UNLV becoming a big dog, because Kansas, one of the best ground games in the country, and that seems to be one of UNLV's weak points, as they're 90th in the country at stopping the run.
Right, I think I agree with you. That's why that number's kind of ticked up a bit, but we'll be diving into more of the bowl games as we get closer and closer over the next couple of weeks. But there's some good early season bowl games. It's great to get bowl season kicked off. It's just not the same as it was 5 to 10 years ago.
Well, again, the transfer portal created that. The fact that these kids can go out and get nil money, right. So they get themselves in the transfer portal and they look to get, kind of bought by whatever university is going. And you can't blame them. And some of these guys want to go from, Heisman Trophy teams to getting themselves the ability to go win a Heisman Trophy. And we talk about Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma. Oklahoma now going to the SEC, where Oklahoma was a dominant team in the Big 12. They go to the SEC. Are they more likely to be more of a 500 team, where he doesn't have the ability to go win a Heisman Trophy on a 500 team, but he could go quarterback Ohio State or he could go quarterback Notre Dame, that give them a chance to potentially be a Heisman Trophy winner?
Actually, rumblings with Dylan Gabriel are Oregon that you've heard a lot about. So,
there you go.
But I'm just surprised that I can see the Oklahoma, but the defections that you're seeing from Ohio State does surprise me a little bit. But we'll see how it all plays out, guys. Again, the two playoff games are really interesting games, kind of low numbers. You've seen money on the dogs in both games. Kind of keep an eye on that, and we'll update you guys each week when we do the bookend segment. We're going to come right back, and we're going to dive into the pro football segment on Bookends, guys. We'll be right back.
Guess what? It's football season, baby. And you know what that means. It's time to bet your buns off. And when it comes to sports betting, you better bet with the STN Sports app. I'm talking football, all the fights, men's and women's basketball, men's and women's soccer ball. We've got it all. And with our 14 convenient sign-up locations around town, it's no wonder they call me the Queen of Convenience. Because when I bet with STN, I feel like royalty. So what in the heck are you waiting for? Download the STN Sports app today and trust the local favorite.
Hey everybody, we're back at Red Rocks Race and Sportsbook. Jason, Chucky for the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, and we're going to dive into the pro football slate. It's been a few weeks now where favorites have really dominated the Sunday slate. The one thing for our side of the counter has been some of the primetime games. You've had 3 straight Mondays where Denver went into Buffalo, Chicago went into Minnesota, and then, of course, you had Cincinnati going to Jacksonville, where you had the dog win outright, which has really kind of flipped the script and helped us a little bit. But you look at Thursday night this week, and it's hard to imagine that. I mean, this was always a marquee game. Patriots, Steelers. Patriots, first team in NFL history to give up 10 points or less in 3 straight games. And guess what? They lost all 3 games. So offense is not a strong suit since Tom Brady left the Patriots. They're a 6-point dog right now against the Steelers, who at 7-5 are still in that wild card mix. Mitch Trubisky will get the start with Kenny Pickett out. This Patriot team's banged up at wideout. We think it'll be Bailey Zappi at quarterback, but offensively, they are really challenged, Jay.
Yeah, and the Steelers are also offensively challenged. We saw them finally put up their first 400
Not as bad as the Pats.
Rushing games after they fire Canada, and then they come home and they lose to the Arizona Cardinals as almost a touchdown favorite there. So both these teams coming off really, really bad showings. The Patriots, that's been a weekly event. Obviously, this team sitting 2-10. They're 1-4 against the spread on the road. They're just short of a touchdown dog here. I don't know where you can count on them to get points, but the defense has been absolutely outstanding, and this Pittsburgh team has really been tough to come by the points. You're going to need to see Jalen Warren or Najee Harris to kind of break one of these big runs to get them to be able to cover a big number here.
I'm not sure when you look at the Patriots' schedule, they win another game.
And do they want to?
Right. I don't think Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi's there next year. So when you talk about a Drake May or a Caleb Williams, they're in a really good spot right now, or even maybe Marvin Harrison, to get one of those top 2 picks right now and maybe kind of, change their course and get one of these young quarterbacks. But I'll give you a couple of stats for these two teams playing right now. So you look at the Patriots, total has gone under in 5 of New England's last 5 games when playing on the road against Pittsburgh. New England is 7-1, however, straight up in their last 8 games against Pittsburgh, but the total has gone under in 9 of Pittsburgh's last 10 games. So between these two teams, I mean, unders just resonate on the board.
Yeah, but when's the last time you saw an under of 30 and a half points in
it's
an
crazy
NFL
in
game?
an NFL game, right?
We're going back to the 1970s. This is a record low total.
It's hard to believe, right?
We're laughing all year long at college football games with Iowa and Nebraska in the 20s, and now we're running into an NFL total that's in the 30.
But you look at the Patriots, who are scoring 6, 3, 0. I mean, they just don't generate any offense right now, and I think that's why you're seeing this total so low. Let's look at some Sunday games right now. Sunday key games: Rams-Ravens. Ravens at 9-3 in a real battle for the number 1 spot in the AFC. Really helped the Jags losing on Monday night against the Bengals. Game opened 7, went to 7.5. Kind of the surprising Rams though at 6-6. They're getting a little healthier, and I think they find themselves now kind of in that wild card discussion a little bit. They're not going to catch the Niners, but they're playing much better for a young team outside of Stafford.
Yeah, Matt Stafford's kind of caught a little bit of fire. Kind of the ground game was Kyron Williams with the big game since he's come back from the IR. But Stafford always has those weapons in Kupp or Nakua. You occasionally find Higsby, but he's had some of his best passing games these last couple weeks. Obviously going up against a different Baltimore Ravens defense here. One of the best in the country, one of the best in the country at getting to the quarterback. They're coming off their bye week, so they're well rested. And Lamar Jackson, we'll see what they can do at home. But this is a big game for the Ravens to stay at the top of the AFC, and the Rams have found themselves in this playoff hunt. So despite the big 7-point spread, this is a game that the Rams really need to win.
Much tougher defense they're facing here. A couple of betting trends here. Total has gone under, guys, in 10 of the Rams' last 15 games on the road. Much different team at home than on the road. Baltimore is 4-0-1 against the number against the Rams. They've really owned them in the last 5 times they've played. Maybe that's one of the reasons you've seen this number tick up, especially early in the week. Another game we're going to look at now, rematch of the late game on Thanksgiving. Seahawks-Niners. Niners easily won that game, 31-13. They're on a roll right now. Our AFC-NFC prop has jumped up to 3 based on the Niners, as strong as they've looked. They're 9-3, only a game back of Philly, but own tiebreakers against the Eagles. This is a Niner team right now that looks like they're Allegiant Stadium bound to be playing in Vegas. They're double-digit favorites in a rematch from just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and we saw them, the Niners, that is, blow the Seahawks out in Seattle. But then Seattle came back with a really kind of bounce-back game, almost played with desperation against the Cowboys in a game that it looked like they had a chance to win outright in Dallas. And Geno Smith looks absolutely fantastic. DK Metcalf had a monster game. They really don't have the running game going at all. Charbonnet was decent in that game, but Kenneth Walker's been hurt. But with Lockett, Smith, Najigma, and Metcalf, the passing game has been solid, but this is just a scary place to go right now at San Francisco. You talk about the way that they looked and just going and destroying the Eagles, and we know that the Niners played that game with a little bit of a chip on them shoulder from the NFC Championship last year, and then obviously the little dust up on the sidelines got that game even more motivated. So a big monster win for the Niners, and you have to ask yourself, is this a little bit of a spot for a letdown with the home game following the Eagles' big win? And you gotta like what you saw out of Seattle in Dallas, and it was a Thursday night game, so Seattle has a little bit of an extra rest. But Seattle looked like they weren't quitting, that they were going to keep the fight going.
You know, and I agree with you. Maybe there was a message sent by San Francisco, but Philly had played 3 games in 13 days. It was a well-rested Niner team. Not to look for excuses, and we'll touch on Philly when we get to their game, but you look at the schedule that they've had over the last month compared to what San Francisco has had. They've really played, murderer's row. Basically all teams that look to be playoff teams, a much tougher schedule. But one of the interesting facts here, too, is that Seattle, 4 of their last 5 road games have all gone under. The game they played on Thanksgiving went under. Can they muster enough offense against that Niner defense?
Yeah, the Niners, you talked about it, they look like our favorite to be headed here to Las Vegas and Allegiant Stadium. They had that hiccup where they lost 3 games in a row. They had some guys banged up in that game. Deebo Samuel missed much of time in those games. Trent Williams missed some time in those games. But this team looks to be clicking on all cylinders. Kind of surprised in the line movement down. The fact that we were 11 came down to 10.5, and I think that public money is going to continue to push that Niner line back up by the time we get to this weekend.
And you could be right about what you said. Maybe it's a little bit of a letdown after they beat Philly last week. Another big game, which really a lot of playoff implications, a rematch of a great playoff game a few years ago with, I think it was 14 seconds left, where Patrick Mahomes was able to get Kansas City into field goal range. Bills, Chiefs. Chiefs opened up 2.5. Number has come down to 2. Bills at 6-6. Kind of strange to be talking about the Bills out of the playoff picture right now. Every game is a huge game to them. They come off their bye, but it just seems like there's something wrong with this Bills team. On the flip side, Kansas City's winning with defense, not offense, but this number has come down just a bit.
Well, I think you could say there's something wrong with both of these teams.
Right.
And I mean that with as much respect as I can, in that we're talking about the Bills and the Chiefs, two of the better
Chiefs
teams
are still
in the league.
They're atop of their division. They still have a chance at the number 1 seed. That isn't the case for Buffalo. I mean, every game means, everything to the Bills.
Yeah, we talked about the Seahawks playing with desperation. I think that's what we're going to see out of the Buffalo Bills this week. Absolute, massive, must-win game, despite the fact that they're going into Kansas City with the road that they have left, with where the teams are sitting in the AFC. It's just a mess of teams that are playoffs eligible. But the Packers, they're a 6-point favorite going into Green Bay last week, and they make Jordan Love look absolutely fantastic. So, and that defense had been really good. And you have to remember, they were down 14-0 to the Raiders before they kind of woke up here. So they've got something that they've got to find out there. We talk about passes being dropped. We talk about pass interference calls not going on. So there were some other things that happened in that game that could have easily made the Chiefs win that game. But we're just not seeing the Patrick Mahomes kind of wing the ball over, finding Travis Kelce.
He has the weapons, though.
Yeah, but that's what they're going to need here with this Buffalo Bill team. I don't see this being the defensive game that maybe it could be. I think that these are going to be two quarterbacks, like you said, kind of 2 years ago, where these guys go back and forth, and it's whoever has the ball last can win this game.
It's really an interesting game because, again, Buffalo really, as you said, they're in desperation mode. This is a team that everybody thought was penciled in for a potential Super Bowl run. They haven't done it yet with McDermott and Josh Allen. Allen still turns the ball over a little bit too much in kind of critical or crucial situations, but the number is starting to reflect money come in on Buffalo. A couple of interesting betting trends for this one, guys. Total's gone under in 4 of Buffalo's last 5 games, which you think is hard to believe with Josh Allen. 10 of Buffalo's last 13 games on the road has also gone under. And Kansas City, who we've talked about their offensive struggles, 7 of their last 8 home games have gone under. So these two teams, you think about offense. That hasn't been the case so far this year.
Yeah, and I haven't checked the weather report yet to see what that game may have. Last week we saw a ton of games played in a lot of rain, a lot of wet last week. So check the weather reports this week.
I think I read that the wind will be swiftly blowing in at Arrowhead. What? You have to get one of those in there per segment.
But again, check the weather throughout the league this week. Again, it's early December. We sit here in Las Vegas and enjoying our lovely weather, and we forget sometimes the East Coast that it's winter time.
All right, now Sunday Night Football, marquee game of the week, NFC East. Cowboys and Eagles rematch. They played a little over a month ago in Philly. Philly wins that game 28-23. Dallas, though, with that loss now that Philly had against the 49ers, just really one game back, has a chance to get right in it. But listen to, Philly's schedule. When you look at who they've played over the last month, Cowboys, Chiefs, Bills, Niners, Cowboys again. So when you talk about the top, 6 teams in football, this is 5 of them. So, I mean, they've really had an extremely tough go of it of late. They still are 10-2, control their own destiny in the NFC, but the Niners are right on their tail, and a loss here, and the Cowboys would be right on their tail. This is a big game for the Eagles. Eagles are in this game as a 3.5-point dog at Dallas in Jerry's World.
Yeah, and this has kind of been the tale of 2 schedules. You talked about the gauntlet that the Eagles have run and the teams that they've had to play the last couple of weeks. And Dallas has kind of been on the opposite end of the spectrum, playing some of the softest teams in the NFL over their last kind of 4 or 5 weeks. So they've been able to put up some big point spreads. They've been able to make Dak Prescott look absolutely fantastic.
MVP candidate.
CeeDee Lamb has been putting up stats like crazy. So now they're going to run in this Eagles team. It's just, what does this Eagles team have left after running the schedule that did and a physical beating that they took from the Niners last week, now having to go to Dallas, a team that kind of played with them in Philly. Dallas had all kinds of opportunities in that game in Philadelphia to put up points, struggled in some 4th down conversions there. And we know that this Cowboys team has been waiting. Obviously, these teams played twice a year in the division, and the Cowboys don't want to get swept by this Eagles. But I don't know that this is the marquee game of the week. You skipped out on our Raiders. and Vikings.
I'm not done yet.
In the afternoon before we got to the night game. But again,
this is the marquee game of the week.
This is the marquee game of the week. You could make an argument that Bills Chiefs in the afternoon, but the fact that this is Sunday night, this is going to determine with these teams maybe the East, maybe the number one seed,
right.
and opens up a lot. If Dallas can pull, they're the favorite. I say they pull the upset because they're the lower seed in the playoffs right now. But it opens that NFC East back up, and it opens back up who's going to be the number one seed in the NFC.
I mean, you think about the Eagles, though, going into last week against San Francisco, 10-1, and here they are 3.5-point underdogs. It just seems big to me.
Well, I think the Eagles' problem the last 3 and 4 weeks, and these are even in games that they've won, the secondary has been exposed. They've got some open areas in that secondary. We saw Deebo Samuel have big games. CeeDee Lamb have big games. There are some areas in that secondary. Buffalo was able to kind of move the ball all over them. There are areas, there are holes in that secondary that you can exploit, and that's why I think you're seeing the number on Dallas. And that's also why you're seeing this total is a little bit north of where you expect it to be, that it could be a high-scoring game.
But really a great game, and as Jay mentioned, if Dallas does find a way to beat Philadelphia here, and San Francisco wins against Seattle, it really throws the NFC into a chaotic situation. I think both conferences now become wide open with who's going to be the number one seed. And don't forget, only one team from each conference gets that bye week. So it's critical, I think, for any team. Quick now, I know Jay mentioned the Raider game. Our Raiders host the Vikings. Vikings are a 3-point favorite. Vikings come off their bye week, but they had lost a couple of games going into that bye week. Really have kind of put themselves in a position where every game is huge right now. Raiders are getting 3 points at home. Starting to see a little bit of play on the Raiders, and the ticket count is really favoring the Raiders so far.
Yeah, talk about two teams in desperation mode, both on the outside of the playoffs, looking in, both desperate for a win to keep their playoff hopes alive. Minnesota's been absolutely fantastic on the road, 5-0-1 against the point spread on the road, so they've been road warriors. We'll see if Dobbs, who came off kind of poor performance against the Bears with all the turnovers, they should get Jefferson back for this game, so we'll see what Minnesota can do there. But again, they've been doing it and winning on the defensive side of the football. Their turnovers really cost them last week, and the Raiders, they've got to find some semblance of offense with O'Connell and get Jacobs and Adams back involved in the game.
So now we go to Monday night, and I know you and I both love it, but a Monday night doubleheader. Both games do kick off at the same time, but it is fun when you've got two games like this. Let's touch on the Giants-Packers game first. No team is hotter than the Packers right now, 3 straight wins. They were kind of a team that was really struggling. They had talked about, are we going to move on from Jordan Love? He really seems to have a good rapport with Watson right now. They've been playing without Jones, but they've really been able to move the ball through the air. Their defense has played better. They're almost a touchdown favorite here against the Giants. It will be Tommy DeVito. But a win here by the Packers, who were 3 games below 500 3 weeks ago, puts them at 7-6. So it's a Packer team that's red hot coming into this game, and they're a 6.5-point favorites.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think for me in this game is I actually think the bye week at this point in time for the New York Giants somewhat works against them. When you have a team that's kind of been so bad and their season's been essentially over, how do you get back up after that bye week to try and finish out this last stretch of games? I wonder if the Giants take that bye week and it was almost like a mini vacation, and it's going to be tough to kind of get back up going against a Packer team now that believes they are a playoff-bound team, coming off a big win over the Kansas City Chiefs, knowing that you're going to play this Giants team that shouldn't be able to play with you. Jordan Love should have all the confidence in the world. You talk about Watson developing that rapport. Jaden Reed's come out of absolutely nowhere to be a star for them. Romeo Doubs has been good. And despite the fact that Aaron Jones hasn't been playing, I think that's been good for A.J. Dillon, because I think when he gets the ball more and more, he becomes that
They've
bell
been playing without Musgrave, too. So
just absolutely burying people. So I think this is a bad, to me, the bye week is normally a good spot that you get fresh. I just wonder for this Giants team and DeVito at quarterback, if it was like, we got a week off, and how do we bounce back and get back into it? And the other game, the Miami-Tennessee, it's not, we have the doubleheader, but it's not like we have two star-studded great games here. The Miami Dolphins are looking to set National Football League records. Tyreek Hill last week 2 long touchdown passes against the Commanders. He'll be looking to do that again against this Titans team in his search for that 2,000-yard season. Tagovailoa has been good. Miami has so many weapons, and that's why we see them almost a 2-touchdown favorite against the Titans.
I think they will be by kickoff.
Really struggled, and again, we saw the Titans team struggle against the Colts last week, and Gardner Minshew able to throw the ball and have some good yardage game against them.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this Dolphin team right now, that Jag loss really kind of flipped the script a little bit in the AFC, because had they won out, they would have controlled their own destiny. Now you've really opened the door up for the Dolphins to potentially be the number 1 seed in the AFC. And there's one thing that's paramount for the Dolphins, and that is quarterback health. And he has stayed healthy, Tagovailoa, this year, and it's such a big difference for those young wideouts and the running backs, and has helped that defense. He's had an MVP caliber season, and as you mentioned, they're a huge favorite in this game.
Yeah, and it's just the weapons, and even if they get a lead, you get Devon Achane. You know, if Mostert's playing well, he scores a touchdown. By halftime, they take him out and they put this young, hungry, rookie running back in there with blazing fast speed, and he's able to go score 2 touchdowns for them on the ground. And then you have to worry about Waddle and Tua and Hill. They just have so many offensive weapons. It's scary. We saw them a couple weeks ago get down to the Carolina Panthers, I think 14-0, and come back and beat them 35-14. So Miami's such a quick score offense, and the Titans, it's exactly the opposite.
Right.
Although we look and the eye test tells you that Will Levis is a big, strong-armed quarterback that can play in this game. They just don't have the ability to consistently move the football down the field, and he really has to hook up with Hopkins on some big plays. Otherwise, Tennessee hasn't been able to kind of have sustained drives. And now we see Derrick Henry potentially banged up a little bit back last week. So one of the best things going for Tennessee is to ground and pound Henry, keep that offense on the field. If they don't have him healthy, that kind of spells a little bit more doom for the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, and I know it's a Monday night doubleheader, but you really have kind of an isolated game where the entire country can watch Tagovailoa and that Miami offense.
They want to put on a show.
Really put on a show. We talked about the struggles of Tennessee. Here's some interesting betting trends. The total has gone under in 7 of Tennessee's last 8 games on the road. The total has gone under in 11 of Tennessee's last 14 games when playing on the road against Miami. So they're going up against a very high-scoring team here, and they don't score a lot.
I made note, Tennessee is 5-7 against the spread this year. However, they are 1-5 on the road against the spread. And the Dolphins, 8-4 against the spread this year, and they've dominated at home, 4-1 against the spread at home.
They've been really dominant, guys. So one more thing, too. Last man standing for the pros. It's down to 3 lucky contestants. We had 4 going into last week. 1 lost. There's 3 left, $150,000 pool at stake. Congratulations, you lucky 3 who have moved on. It's going to be a fun week.
Well, not to mention, we've got another big monster tournament here in Las Vegas, as the in-season tournament for the NBA is now going to be in Vegas this weekend. So we've got those semifinals and finals that we get to enjoy here. The in-season tournament's kind of provided some excitement into the league in the kind of start of these regular seasons. You can see kind of a motivation for the teams. You're not seeing players rest in these games. And from a West Coast bias standpoint, the Lakers have been absolutely fantastic in the season tournament. LeBron and Davis have been good. It looks like they're on potentially a collision course to see the Milwaukee Bucks potentially in the final here in Las Vegas, which would be kind of absolutely crazy to see those two teams, one playing really good defense, one in Milwaukee that's playing exceptional offense. So we see kind of a battle of teams playing in 2 different methods.
And of course the Knights, hockey season's in full swing. They've had some struggles of late. Had a mini winning streak, then just lost again recently. Not nearly as dominant as they were early in the season.
Well, they got to get goaltending. They got a couple banged up guys on the defensive side of things. Got some scoring run there a little bit on a trip up to Canada, and kind of stuttered here at home. But I think the Knights are going to be still in good shape as the season goes on, and definitely enjoy watching their games. They've been really, really competitive this year.
And I know, guys, I touch on it every week. It's the holiday season. We know there's honey to-do lists and so much going on right now, and it's bowl season and hockey and the basketball we talked about, of course, pro football. It's a great time to get signed up for STN Sports. It really does bring the sports book to you with all this stuff going on. We love when you come out, but if you can't make it, you have that sports book right in the palm of your hand. And again, don't forget about Durango. Congratulations, gang. Everyone's done a tremendous job there. Beautiful property. Sportsbook is a game changer. You have to check it out.
Not only a sportsbook, Nico's, Mijo's, the food court's absolutely exceptional. Summer House, you cannot go wrong. Try all the different outlets. Everything is fantastic.
It really is. All right, guys. For Jason, I'm Chucky. For the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, we'll see you guys next week.